You're listening to the Educated Cowgirl Podcast, Episode 6. Hey, Cowgirls! Welcome back to the pod. I am so glad you are listening and loving this podcast. It is truly something I have really enjoyed doing and getting to talk with some incredible people so far and learn their stories and converse with them about what they think is important to help grow the industry to ensure it thrives for the future. And today's episode is no exception. I am very excited with the guest I have for y'all today. I have the pleasure to sit and talk with someone who has become quite big on TikTok over the last few years with her hilarious views on all things horses and this crazy world we have decided to be a part of, as well as being a friendly face for new people joining the industry and helping them to learn more about horses and spreading kindness. Devin Conley from Devin Out West on social media. She not only represents the Western industry, but has used her online platform to help educate new horse owners in the equine community on how they can improve and make them feel more welcome. We talked about how a smile goes a long way when seeing new faces at a show or around the barn, and we all have to work together to reach the younger generations to help see the equine world thrive. I had so much fun talking with her in this episode, and I hope this inspires you to do your part to say a friendly hello to that new exhibitor in the warm-up pen or just lend a helping hand. Without further delay, let's get into my conversation with Devin. Hey, and welcome to the Educated Cowgirl Podcast, hosted by yours truly. My name is Abby Carpenter, and I am a cowgirl and equestrian through and through. I started this podcast wanting to make more of an impact in the equine industry. That's why I am making it my mission to help promote the industry to the public through sharing my love for horses through education and bringing other experts and professionals onto the podcast with me to discuss important topics that impact the horse community. So whether you are a crazy horse lady like me, want to learn more about horses, or want to learn more about the industry, you've come to the right place. On this podcast, we will be talking about ownership, horsemanship, fitness, faith, breeds, and so much more. We believe that it doesn't matter what type of saddle you ride in or the breed of horse you may ride. We all contribute to this community to make it great, and that there is always something to learn from the back of your horse. So grab a coffee and get ready to take some notes, and let's get started. This is the Educated Cowgirl Podcast. All right, so welcome, Devin, to the Educated Cowgirl Podcast, and thank you so much for agreeing to talk with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So I have to say, I love your content, and I thought it would be great to bring on the podcast to have a conversation about the Western and the equine industries and get your thoughts on where you believe it's headed for the future. So to start us off, for those that don't know, can you introduce yourself to the listeners, what you do, and a fun fact about yourself?
Yeah, right on. My name's Devin, and I grew up in the Western industry. My dad was a team roper on the circuit, so he was a heeler. So I grew up in rodeo and traveled around with him, and then we got into rodeo, my brother, my sister, and myself. From a pretty young age, we started going down the road. I grew up running barrels and doing some breakaway, mostly barrels though. And kind of stuck with that for a long time. Switched over, did a little bit of like ranch horse stuff, ranch horse versatility stuff. Just actually bought another barrel horse, so you can't get away from it.
No.
And between running barrels and ranch horse stuff, just a lot of actual like ranch work and cows and working cows and things of that nature. So yeah, that's my Western background. It's just always been in my blood. It's we grew up on a little family ranch, and my dad's place in Colorado. And for a fun fact, I suppose there's people that still don't know that I was a history teacher for 10 years. So I taught 7th and 8th grade history, and I'm a huge history nerd. I mean, I can tell you anything you want about American history. But I taught middle school for about 10 years, and then I was a school counselor. So I do have my counseling license and a little bit of a clinical background. And then recently made the switch into a whole different field, brand new career. And now I work for the Equine Network. and horse and rider in specific, and I absolutely love it. So, but
That's really interesting that you went from teaching back to ranching. So,
yeah, I mean, I never stopped with the horses throughout that whole time. I kind of
right.
lived a bit of a double life, teaching during the day and working horses as soon as I got home, and
Yeah.
I've never been without horses, which I'm very, very blessed for. But now I
Yeah.
can fully focus on that work within the horse industry.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, first question I want to ask you. So since you are a Western living cowgirl, and you talked a little bit about your background with horses, but can you how did you get started in the career social life you have now? From even though you've already touched on it a little bit, but can you continue on with that? How it became your career? What made you decide to leave teaching?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Um, I loved teaching. And like
Mm-hmm.
I said, I mean, history, I decided I was going to be a history teacher my junior year of high school. I had a teacher named Miss Langford. She was a history teacher, and I sat in her class and literally said, like, I want to be her.
Yeah.
So I graduated high school at 17, graduated college at 20, got my first teaching job at 20, and like never looked back. So I loved teaching, and then I loved being a counselor also. And this this opportunity with Horse and Rider just fell out of the sky. I wasn't like seeking something
Mm-hmm.
different, but I was definitely open to it. And
Mm-hmm.
my new boss had reached out, and I went on her podcast actually,
Yeah.
and then I saw an opening for a position with that same company, and I just had to take the jump. And so
Yeah.
I guess it was really hard, when I went to my principal at the school where I was working, and I told her about it. She said, "Oh my God, if you don't do it, I'm going to. Like, that's an amazing opportunity." And
Yeah.
so it wasn't really like even a conscious decision, like I'm going to leave teaching. It was an opportunity that came from nowhere. And I mean, I'm a believer. Like I believe God put that right in my path.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was such an incredible series of events, and
Yeah.
I don't have like a journalism degree. I don't have, a social media degree. But it's something
Yeah.
that I've discovered I truly have like a passion for, especially in the horse industry. So what a blessing. And I love
Yeah.
my new boss, and they're
Yeah.
just everybody I work with is so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So what specifically do you do for Horse and Rider? Like, or do you write articles for them, or what do you do?
I do write articles. My title is digital content producer. So
Okay. Okay.
I write a bunch of articles for the website. I handle all the social media channels. I write some for the print magazine. My boss is, like I said, she's so great, and she like trusted me so much right off the bat. She gave me a story to do for our next print issue, like a big feature story, and I was so grateful for her for like just trusting me with that.
Yeah.
So I do
Nice.
pretty much all things digital is my.
Okay. 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 Nice. Nice. So like I've mentioned, you have such a great platform on TikTok and social media, representing both the Western lifestyle and educating new horse owners. And you do it in a very funny way, which I love, which can be very sarcastic at times, which I appreciate. Um, can you tell me when you started sharing your content, what brought you to use your platform in that way? And did you think it would grow as much as it has?
Uh, no, no, this was all by accident. I started TikTok like right at the start of 2020 as a way to connect with my students because we were going into the pandemic, and
Yeah.
I was like, what is this app that they're talking about? So I started posting on there and just kind of figuring it out just for fun. And I think, yeah, I'm really glad people like my humor. I think it's real dumb sometimes, but I just
Yeah.
try to think about like we're all if we own horses, most of us are going through the same struggles. And if you don't
Yes.
own horses, I think it's like still funny because you can look in and be like, oh my gosh, horses are really this ridiculous sometimes. It's like, yes, they
Yeah.
are. Yes, they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, for sure.
So as it grew, I've always been, I mean, it might sound cheesy, but I've always been kind of an empath and somebody that really cares about the well-being of others. And I think that's also what led me to teaching. and also counseling. And so I would just growing up in the horse industry, I will say, and I think a lot of people could this could resonate with. There's some nasty corners of the horse industry. Like
Hmm.
there's some real issues, I think, and I think that there's a lot of um, fear for newcomers on like getting involved and running into people that aren't
Yes.
friendly, so to speak. Um,
Yes.
and I was seeing that online a lot. And I was like, man, I don't like this. Like, we got to be
Yeah.
welcoming people, right? That's how we're literally going to grow our industry and keep it afloat.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I thought maybe if I just could bridge that gap a little bit between people that have horses, people that are in the industry, and then also folks that want to get involved. It just kind of all happened organically. And I was actually just talking about this on my Instagram story this morning. Like and this has nothing to do with me. I haven't run across such a great community of people on the internet
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
that community. Like the folks that are with me that comment on my videos and send messages and help each other out. And again, that's not me. Like I'm not
Hmm.
something great and wonderful. It's
Yeah.
those people. Awesome, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. Every point was like dead on of like what we need in this industry is more people smiling at each other and being like, you don't have to be intimidated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So with that mission that you have of spreading kindness not only to animals but to others, and making it easier to work together in this horse industry, in this horse world, um, how do you think that we can use that to help grow the industry and make people feel more welcome? You touched on it a little bit, but
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted for sure. I think it's one of those things where it could be as simple as, let's say you're at an event, a race or a jackpot or a show or whatever, and you notice someone is maybe you know they're new, you know that it's their first time there. Maybe they're just wandering around lost, like trying to find the office so they can get entered up or something.
yeah,
It's so easy to just be like, are you looking for something? Like, can I point you in the
yeah,
right direction? Yeah, are you looking for the
yeah,
water box? Are you looking for the office?
yeah,
Um, and I know it's a fine line between like you don't want to tell people what to do and you don't want to tell people what to do with their animals or anything. And I'm not saying that, but just offering a helping hand to folks
yes,
that need it, I think is something small we can all be doing. I think again, also it's I always say this, it's so easy to just be nice. Like I feel like it's harder to go out of your way and like talk about people behind their backs and glare at folks in the warm-up pen and talk,
yeah,
bad about somebody that pulls up in maybe like a beat up rig or something. Like
hmm,
that expends energy. It's so
yeah,
easy to just not do that.
yeah,
Uh, so being
exactly,
mindful of our words and mindful of our actions, I think is important. And
yes,
also, I do think on the flip side, that folks joining our industry, they need to be willing to learn and they need
yes,
to be willing to listen, right? And there's
yeah,
so many good horse people. Like good grief, there's so many amazing people in the industry that are willing to help. And if newcomers just take some time to listen and
yes,
to soak in that knowledge and information, like they'd be better off for it too. So
yeah,
it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Like we need to be welcoming and open to folks, and then people coming in
yes,
also take the
yes.
opportunities to listen to people that have been in this game for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a lot harder to ask for help when they're glaring at you in the warm-up pen and you're like, "Oh, they're not going to help me cuz they look mad." Like but yeah, so another thing with participation in the industry is the decline that we've seen recently in the industry with the pandemic and the inflation and gas prices and all that stuff. Um, what do you see in terms of trends in both the Western and horse world that we can do to help increase participation and grow the industry?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I think a lot of it is kind of out of our hands, right? I mean, um, good horses cost money, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just kind of how it is. And I mean, there's deals, obviously, like you can totally come across something amazing for a great price. But at the same time, like I think buyers do forget sometimes how much goes into making a good horse
Mm-hmm.
and how much time and money goes into that, and good horses are worth it. So I understand the finance part is hard, right? And it's been a hard winter for people too, especially like ranchers and people in agriculture,
Right.
at least around here. It's been rough. So I know there's a lot of folks on tough times. And so that's just a tough one. But in terms of like trends I have seen, it does seem like maybe there's not as many youth getting involved anymore. And I think that's a detriment to our industry.
Yes, yes.
And
Yeah,
we need,
that's been a big topic lately is I listened to it's a On the Rail podcast and they talk there's so many episodes where they talk about youth. We need more youth because if we don't have youth, we won't have amateurs, and if we don't have amateurs, we won't have trainers. Or you know what I mean? Yeah, like that's the biggest thing is youth participation.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know if there's like a sole reason for that or if it's just a bunch of things
Hmm.
all rolled into one, but that is a concerning trend that we aren't having as many youth participants, and that's
Yeah.
something that we need to, yeah, figure out how we can encourage young people to get involved
Yes.
and that's like my big passion also is in ranching,
Yes.
in the ranching industry, and we're seeing that in ranching too. Is it's just
Yes.
it's not, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of reasons for that I won't get into right now, but
Yeah.
it's a trend there also.
Yeah, yeah, because as we know, like, the love of horses is started at a very young age. Like, the younger we can get them started, the better. Which is why I think it's important to reach those younger generations to get started in riding. Have you, with your content and your videos, have you had any contact with the youth in your life where they've been inspired to learn more about horses or start writing?
I've been so fortunate to get messages like that from, especially like high school kids that say like, can you help me with this? Or what is your advice for this? Or how do you overcome this obstacle? And I mean, I really do try to go through all my messages and reply.
Hmm.
Because I get behind and overwhelmed. Side note, I'm actually a huge introvert. And so I struggle with getting overwhelmed sometimes. But I do get some amazing messages like that from young people that they're reaching out and they
Hmm.
want help, and maybe they can't afford to even like go to a trainer right now or something, but they still want to better themselves. And if
Yeah.
that's anybody listening, young or adult, like books are your friend, right? The internet's your friend, YouTube's your friend, training videos are your friend.
Yeah.
Going to events in person and talking with folks is your friend. So that's my advice with that too, is just like never stop learning. Um,
Yes.
do whatever you
Yeah.
can to keep growing your knowledge.
Yes. Yes. And to add to that, another important part of seeing this world succeed is reaching people at that grassroots level, which is something we've talked about already, and welcoming them in. Because as we said, it's very intimidating when they see the expensive horses and the shows and the barns that can seem a bit clicky at times. Not to downgrade any barns out there, but they can. So I also want to bring up that you talk about like educating new owners helps them to be a contributing member of the horse community. Um, what are some other ways that you or others or you've seen others do besides social media to welcome people in?
I mean, I do see it quite often. Like, I don't want to sound like everybody I've seen in the horse industry, is like total awful, terrible person, because that's not the case at all. Goodness
Mm-hmm.
gracious, I've seen so many good people at events, like jump in, help out. You got a horse maybe that's anxious or something, and somebody will ride over and sit next to you and just provide that like support or whatever. So I definitely have seen that a lot at events,
Yes.
and from show events to barrel jackpots and ranch riding stuff and everything in between.
Yeah.
Uh, so I just think social media is a wonderful tool. It's an incredible thing. And I have been incredibly blessed with the opportunities, that I've had to grow my accounts, and the people I've
Mm-hmm.
met through there. We also can't forget that we need to act the same in real life. that we do online, right? So we can spread all the positivity online,
Mm-hmm.
but we got to back that up in person. Hopefully that makes
Yes.
sense. I mean, and like sometimes I'll have folks recognize me or something from TikTok, which again, I always, they'll be like, "Hey, do you have a TikTok?" And I always say, "No, no, I don't even know what that is." And then they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And then I have to tease them and say, "No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's me." And I just really want people coming away from me going like, "Oh, yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
Nice in real life too." And that's like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's what we should all be striving for. So,
Yes.
to answer your question is just like, let's carry on that kindness and that attitude into our real lives as well.
Yes. Yes. Smile goes a long way. A smile goes a long way, especially in the horse world.
Right, right.
Like I remember, I mean, I've been in the horse world my whole life, but when I first got my mare, she had some buddy sour issues that I had to get kind of work through a little bit. And the first time I took her to a practice for sorting, um, I like couldn't get her to step away from everybody else, and I had to have like one of my friends trot alongside me with me, like helping me. But like, and like, she already knew that I knew how to ride, but like, she knew that I was struggling with my horse. So like, I think it's new people and people that have been in this industry. They may have a new horse that they're like, I'm still figuring this guy out. Like,
Oh,
yeah. So
I
just
can't count the number of times I've shown up on a new horse or a young horse and been just absolutely humbled.
yeah,
So yeah, I agree. It's like it's not just newcomers. We just need to
yeah,
be kind to everybody, you know. And
yeah,
it sounds so cliche and silly, I
yeah.
think. Yeah, just be kind to people. But
Yeah, because horses are the biggest, and cows are the biggest humbling animals ever. Because you could be on top of the world and then you could get bucked off the next day, and you're like, okay, well, maybe I'm
oh,
not good.
I broke my back in 2019 making a practice run on a horse that I'd run 100, 500 times or whatever. He was basically bomb proof, and he's the horse I broke my back on. So it's like,
Yeah,
yep, you can get
yeah,
humbled real quick.
yeah. So, one final question for you. Where do you see your career and your platform going? And what advice would you give? What final nugget of advice would you give to others, like educating, that are also educating newcomers into the sport?
Um, so I mean, like I mentioned before, and I did love teaching very much, but I'm so happy in my job right now. So I'm really hoping to have, a long career with Horse and Rider and the Equine Network because I think it's an incredible company. Um, so professionally, that's what I want to stick with. And then as far as my
Mhm.
social media, I do want to keep growing it and meeting people and like I learn from people on there so much as well, right? Like I every day that
Yeah,
I receive these heartfelt messages, like that humbles me. And so
yeah,
I want to keep that in my life for sure, and just keep meeting people and talking with people and growing the platform so that we can all grow together, if that makes sense. And then I guess yeah, best advice for somebody that is maybe wanting to kind of do the same thing or maybe start a social channel or start out online and in that space is be genuine. Like it's so easy on social media to fall into the trap of like, I gotta do this or do that or,
keep up with the trends.
friends and the Joneses or whatever. But if it's not your thing, don't force it. Like just be genuine. I'm not a good dancer, so I'm not gonna do like TikTok dances because nobody would watch it. Well, people would watch them and laugh at them. But like they wouldn't be laughing with me. And so yeah, just be genuine, be authentic, be
Yes.
yourself, and I guarantee you, like anybody listening, you have some sort of special gift, some sort of special talent, something that is unique to you that the world can benefit from, and and you should embrace that.
Perfect. Perfect. Love that. Love that. So I love to end my interviews with a little this or that game. So I'm
Okay,
going to give
let's
you
do it.
two different options, and you can decide which one you prefer. So mares or geldings?
I don't have, I really don't have a preference. honestly. I mean, I've owned a lot of really gritty, tough, cool mares, and I've owned a lot of really hardworking geldings. So just like I feel like a good horse can't be a bad color. A good horse can't be a bad gender either. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's might be a first. Usually people are like, "Oh, geldings 100% or mares 100%." But that's the first. So spring or summer?
Mm, summer. Where I live, I kind of bounce back and forth between Wyoming and Colorado, so it doesn't get like miserable hot. I mean, if I was in Texas or something, I'd probably say spring, but
Yeah.
summer for sure, just because it never really gets above 90. So
Yes, exactly. So rodeo or ranch?
like ranch riding or like
Like just being out on the ranch.
oh my heart's in both places, but there's something special about just being out on the ranch.
Yeah, yeah. I get that. So mornings or evenings?
I'm a morning person. I'm kind of an obnoxious morning person where like I'm up, alarm goes off at 5 or 4:45, and I pop out of bed and I'm like, let's do it. And I
Yeah.
drink a cup of coffee a day, and that's all I need. And I know that there's people listening right now like, oh, you are obnoxious. Um, I love mornings.
Nice, nice. All right, so coffee or tea?
Mm. Again, like I drink a cup of coffee a day, and that's pretty much all the caffeine I can handle. So after that, decaffeinated tea.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. All right. Oh my God, I've loved this conversation so much, Devin. Like, I loved your insight into everything, and I think the listeners will really, really love it too. And I'm so glad I got to pick your brain. So thank you again. And for those that don't know, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, it's Devin with an I. So I think my parents wanted another son. But it's Devin out west, Devin out west, and I'm on TikTok, Instagram with that, and Facebook, and I have a YouTube channel that I don't really post on, but I would like to start. So
Yeah.
yeah, anywhere Devin out west.
Perfect, perfect. And for those of you who didn't catch that, it'll be in my show notes as well. And I think we need more people like you doing this and educating and just being a helping hand, like you said. And I just continue to like watch your platform grow and seeing what you can do with Horse and Rider and how that will contribute as well to the industry. So I hope we get to connect again in the future, whether on the pod or in person, as we're both in Colorado. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to just wrap up with saying like I appreciate your kind words so much and everybody's kind words. And I do want to make it clear like I'm I'm not the best, right? Like there's so much I need to be doing to better myself and continue to grow. And I just never want to come off as like I'm the shining light beacon to follow because I'm definitely not, right? I fall every day.
Yeah.
So I think if we just all just try every day to be a little bit better, that's the key.
1% every day. I totally agree. All right. Well, thank you, Devin.
I'm good, thank you.
I just love how thoughtful Devin is with how she sees the industry, and she had so many insightful and excellent points on how we can be more inclusive in this industry, and how being there for each other can go a long way in growing the sport. We have all heard it takes a village to raise a child, right? And I think that is also true when it comes to the horse community. We are all looking for ways to improve our lives as owners, breeders, riders, trainers, etc. But we can only do that if we work together to have those important conversations and spread a kind gesture or word towards one another. We have to reach those new people who are just starting out and feel intimidated by those of us who are more experienced with horses. That's why we have to open our hearts and arms to welcome them in and educate them, as that is what will grow our industry. I believe Devin explained this perfectly in this episode. I hope you took away just as much as I did and will support her on social media and spreading her message of positivity, not just online, but in person as well. Speaking of online support, I would love to see how you support this podcast by screenshotting this episode or your favorite episode so far and sharing it on your stories and tagging me at The Educated Cowgirl. Also, I would love if you would leave me a rating and review on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast, as that will help me to see how you like the show and what I can improve and who you would like to hear from and what you would like to have me talk about on this podcast. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Educated Cowgirl podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, learned something new, and will come back for more. But for now, stay blessed and ride on, cowgirls.